Hey guys, this is Goku, and on this channel we talk about poker and ideas that can improve your life. Today we're gonna start another GTO spot. This time it will be MP2 open versus big blind call. We just finished playing another spot that was MP2 open versus button call. So it's gonna be fun playing versus the big blind now. Let's jump right into it. First hand we've got King 9 suited on 7, 6, 10. We're gonna bet 2. Okay, betting 5 is better. Played 61% of the time. I see the bet amount versus the big blind is different, which is interesting. Now there's an ace of hearts on the turn. And do we continue betting here or do we check? I think we check here. The solver checks 76% of the time. Now there's a 4 of diamonds on the river. The big blind overbets the pot. We're gonna fold. And it is the correct play. 5, 6 suited on 9 tray queen. Is this going to be a check? Should be a bet 5 again. 77% of the time. Okay. Now the big blind leads out to us for 2 BBs. Do we sometimes raise it? Probably so, but I'm just gonna fold. Yeah, we should just fold. I wanna make sure that we can hit 20 big blinds of EV loss. This is our goal for this series, for this 500 hands. So and of course we also need to make sure that we're betting or raising a bit smaller than we used to, because that's what the feedback from the previous spot told us. Now the villain checks and we're gonna bet 2 on the King 10-9. This is the ideal action, played 67% of the time. And what does the big blind do? The big blind calls. We have an ace of hearts on the turn. I think we continue betting here. We bet 7. Should actually be a check 73% of the time. Betting 7 is a small EV loss, but just very rare part of the strategy. Nonetheless, the villain called and we have a queen of spades on the river. And do we shove here? I think we do. We're not gonna know what happens here because this is too rare of a tree, but the big blind folds. Ace 10 off on a 4 deuce king. I think we're betting 2 here. We are. Villain folds. Pocket deuces on king jack queen. Is this going to be a bet 2? Should be a bet 5. You can already see that the solver likes betting 5 here on this when we're playing versus the big blind, which is interesting. Now, do we check with ace jack on 6-4-6? We should rather bet 2, 98% of the time. But we didn't, so we're gonna do this now. We're not gonna know what happens here, unfortunately. But the villain folds. Pocket jacks on 10 king 4 is gonna be a bet 2. Or a check, 53% of the time. Villain calls. There's another king on the turn. I feel like we should continue betting here, but maybe we should check. Yeah, checks the ideal play, but just 32% of the strategy. There's another 10 on the river, 10 of hearts. Now the villain overbets the pot. Do we call here or do we fold? I think we have to call. Yes, we do have to call, and the villain shows with a missed flush draw. Pocket 8s on king 6-6. I think we're betting 2. It is the ideal action and the most frequent play. The villain check raises to 8.5. I think we call. Yeah. Now there's an ace on the turn and the villain bets 2/3 of the pot. I think at this point we fold. And surprisingly, this is fine EV-wise, but 1/3 of the strategy is folding here. We should actually be calling 65% of the time here. Which is super weird, because we're getting committed, right? Once we call. And what can we really beat? Just pure bluffs. And there's no straight draws or anything, so kind of weird. 9-8 of hearts on a 7-10 king. We are going to bet 2. Yeah, bet 5 is better, 60% of the time. Bet 2 is 25, so 15 is checking. We get called. 4 of diamonds on the turn. Do we check here or do we continue betting? I think we're gonna bet 2/3 of the pot. It's fine EV-wise, but checking is the ideal action. Played 61% of the time. Villain folds. Ace 10 on deuce queen 9. I want to bet 2 again, but let's bet 5 for a change. And this should be a check 44% of the time. Betting 5 is fine EV-wise, 31% of the strategy or 30. 6 of diamonds on the turn. We're gonna check behind. Yeah, that's the ideal action, 94% of the strategy. And now there's a 7 of diamonds on the river. The villain leads out for 1/4 of the pot. Now do we raise it? Do we call it? I think we call it. Yeah, 77% of the time we should call. I assume the rest is re-raising. Let's go to the next one. Ace queen off on an ace 8 deuce. Is this a bet 2? It is. Villain calls. We hit our queen on the turn. I think we're gonna bet 2/3 of the pot now. Solver prefers overbetting 87% of the time and bets 2/3 of the time the remainder. Ace jack off on a queen jack 7. We bet 2. Betting 5 is the preferred play 62% of the time. Betting 2 is fine EV-wise, but just 6% of the strategy, so we can see the solver checking here 30% of the time. 4 of diamonds on the turn. Now do we check? Do we bet? I think we're gonna check. Yeah, that's 69% of the strategy. Now the solver, now the villain checks again on the 10 of spades, and we're gonna bet half pot here. That's the ideal action. The villain folds. 4-3 on an 8-8-10. Villain checks. Now do we check here with this kind of hand? Nope. Should never check here. Should bet 2. We didn't, so we're gonna do that now. Villain calls. And we check behind on the ace of hearts. And we see the villain having pocket deuces. King 9 on a 5 queen 10. Is that a bet 5? It is. Villain calls. There's a 3 of diamonds on the turn. Do we continue betting with our hand or do we check? I think we check. That's the ideal action, 42% of the time. Now the villain leads for a quarter of the pot. And I think we have to raise here, right? Unless we're folding, but probably we can't fold. We're gonna try and raise. And it seems like we should just fold 99.6% of the time. Re-raising is small, well, medium EV loss, I would say. But just a very rare part of the strategy, so we should just give up on this hand here. King Queen off on a tray ace. We're betting 2. It's the ideal action. Villain folds. 7-9 suited on Queen 7-4. I think we're gonna check behind here. Betting 2 is the preferred action. Play 96% of the time. Checking is fine EV-wise, but just 2% of the strategy. Now the villain overbets on the 8 of hearts. Do we call this? Do we fold? I think we fold. Yeah. Pocket queens on 4 king 8. We're betting 2. Villain folds. Pocket kings on 9-10-9. The villain leads for 5 BBs. We're gonna call. Now there's an ace on the turn. And the villain leads again. We're gonna call again. And 8 of spades on the river. And do we call for the third time or do we fold? I think we fold our pocket kings here. And we should. Ace king off on a queen jack queen. We're betting 2. That's the ideal action. The villain calls. 6 of diamonds on the turn. I think we're gonna check now. Yeah, 81% of the time. And we hero straight on the river. And we're gonna try and overbet it, I think. Or bet half pot. Yeah, we're gonna try overbet it. That's the ideal action. But the villain folds. Pocket tens on 4-8-7. We're betting 5. That's the ideal action. Villain calls. 6 of spades on the turn. And the villain leads for 2/3 of the pot. We're gonna call. And deuce of clubs on the river. Now do we check behind? The villain checks to us. Do we check behind or do we bet at this? This is an interesting spot, really. Kind of want to check behind because I'm afraid of making a big EV loss mistake. But on the other hand, I want to bet, so I'm gonna check behind. Let's see. Yes, perfect. We should be checking behind 99.9% of the time. So I'm really glad I didn't bet at this. Yeah, the villain just had a 6. Cool. King Jack off on a 9-10-5. Think this might be bet 5. It is. Villain folds. Ace tray suited on 8-8 deuce. Is that a bet 2? It is. Villain folds. Pocket 7s on 9-9-5. Villain leads for 2/3 of the pot. Or more actually, 5 to 6.5. We're calling. Villain leads again for 11 BBs. We are going to call again. And there's an 8 of spades on the river. And villain now shoves. Now do we call this or do we fold? I kind of want to fold. I kind of want to call this. But I'm afraid this will be an EV loss play. Let me think about this here. I think we're gonna fold. And it is actually 50-50. So we should call here 51% of the time and fold 49. So yeah, it's fine either way. Cool. Pocket deuces on 9-6-9. Think this might be bet 2 or a check. We get called. Ace of hearts on the turn. Should we continue betting here with our deuces? I'll just check. I think we should maybe continue betting here. Or maybe let's check. Now I had a good feeling it was a good hand to continue betting with, and we should be doing that 70% of the time. Checking behind is just 3.7% of the time, so we should not really be doing that. On the 10 of hearts, we're gonna check. And again, surprisingly, the solver likes donk betting here. Checking behind is small EV loss, but just 9% of the strategy. Pocket 5s on tray, jack, tray. We're gonna bet 2. That's the ideal action. Villain folds. And we've played our 25 hands. Let's see the result. Whoa! We're already getting off to a good start. We're on minus 13 BBs, so that's perfect. We got our frequencies with the betting or raising perfectly, and checking or calling almost very good. We folded one time more than the GTO, but yeah, overall an excellent start to this spot. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a comment, just write GTO or ask any questions you might have. Subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Please leave a thumbs up and check out the GTO trainer. This is a cool tool and I'm really enjoying using it. I hope you guys enjoy watching this as well, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.